Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session, which is common questions, concerns about Skype for Business. So it's not too late. If you're in the wrong room, please feel free to find your way. But welcome. If you are in the right room, great. Thanks for joining us straight after lunch. We appreciate your time. It's a really, really exciting time for us to be here as part of the business. Myself and Amr will introduce ourselves shortly. But great to spend this time with you. So thank you very much. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing in a minute here with this session and talk a little bit about how we want this to progress. One of the things I just wanted to sort of real quick, in case the room starts to get full, which looks like there's plenty of space, but if in case the room gets full, please, let's accommodate everybody with a seating space. That would be really appreciated. Hopefully you've seen this slide before as well. No photography, none of that kind of stuff. We are going to have a little bit of a free-form discussion here. We don't have a lot of slides. This is sort of meant to be a little bit more interactive, but we don't have anything that's going to be like that. But I know Amir's a little shy. He doesn't like photographs, so it's mainly for Amir. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Taimur. Good afternoon. It's a privilege. It's my hometown, and it's a privilege to be in front of my hometown, a crowd in front of my hometown. So thank you so much. My name is Amir Kaleem. I started my career as a flight line engineer fixing planes. Basically, in the Air Force, they use you as general purpose electrical engineer. So from missile guidance systems to PBXs to planes, that's what I did for 10 years. And then when I left Air Force, I joined a small firm here in Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And working with traders, nothing against traders, but traders are very demanding, and that's where I got my taste of, So whole my life, the point I'm trying to make here is that most of my life I've been on the enterprise side. And one more thing, although I work for Microsoft, but I have problems spelling AD, very hardcore IP network telecom guy. That's where my background is, and really excited to have you here, an opportunity to interact with you, answer your questions. We put together some, few slides and few questions up there, and we absolutely want you to be this session to be interactive. We have left plenty of time at the end as well for people to come on the stage, probably something like 30, 40 minutes. So let's get going, and I'm going to give it back to Taimur.
Yeah, I don't have a really storied history on this. I just have a simple past. So my background, I've sort of been in the UC industry for a while, worked for Cisco for a while. I'm at Microsoft now, and I'd love to talk to you all things about communication. So as Amir mentioned, we've got some. So what we did a little bit something different, right? We gathered some feedback beforehand over Twitter, over Yammer, over some social media to try and understand what are top of mind topics for people here at the conference. So we've put together a list of things that we think are generally questions that are on top of your mind. So we're going to go through those. We'll try to get through those as quickly as possible so that hopefully the questions that you have will also be answered there. But if not, we're going to leave, like Amir said, plenty of time at the end for you to come with your questions. So while we're going through some of this stuff, if you have questions, please feel free to bring them up. There's mics all over. We are recording the session, so we'd love if you could come up to the mic to ask your question. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get to a lot of everybody's questions. We're not going to try and do a lot of technical deep dive all the way down. Some of the stuff that we'll have to take offline. Please understand that we're going to try and get as much as we can done at a high level, and then we're happy to take stuff offline if needed as well. So please let us know if you have any thoughts and questions around that. So with that, I'm actually going to these are the topics that we're going to talk about, and what we've gotten from you, from feedback. So if you've answered us on Yammer or on Twitter around what you'd like to hear about, thank you very much for the feedback. This is sort of what we've come up with as a holistic list, right? Obviously not all-encompassing, but things that we heard a lot about. We're going to talk a little bit about Skype for Business, our brand, what we're doing there. I'm going to talk a little bit about extensibility, customer reach, headless clients, those kinds of things. We're going to talk a lot about cloud offering. That's going to be a key topic as well. Some voicey conversation. Amir and I both have a voice background, so we'll talk a little bit about, we'd love to talk about voice. So that's going to be a key one, and then we'll get to whatever's on top of your mind. So that sound good? I'm going to hand over for the first particular topic to Amir.
Okay. So I've traveled around the world, and since November we made this announcement, there's a whole bunch of questions which come up, especially around the rebrand. So I want to make sure that we basically address those questions. You heard Gurdeep, and you also heard other people, Julia White, for example, talking about the Gen Y. That's how my living room looks like, right? So it's just like people here. I was last week in Detroit, and I was interacting with a customer, and that customer shared a very interesting data point with me. So I'm going to share that with you. He talked about that there was a survey done that how people go to somebody else's house and push the doorbell. So people like me, they push and they use their index finger. And all the millennials, they use their thumb. So well, having said that, and this is it's gonna become relevant. Trust me on this. This is a sort of a list of questions which very commonly asked by people, after the rebrand announcements in November, close to Thanksgiving. That hey, does it mean that we are going away from enterprise architecture and we are basically going to give you the consumer grade client and consumer grade service at the back end? Does that mean that it's going to be free now? Do I need to go and buy Skype in and Skype out now? All sort of the questions are coming from. What do you mean by this all universal communication terms you coined about last link conference, and what do you mean by that exactly? And again, what about, how do we, if you interact? I've actually seen somebody asking me this question about 2 weeks back, one of the CIO of a very large company, that for video, do I need to download Skype client now? That sort of question. So I want to really address them. Here it is. Link is now rebranded as Skype. There are still two separate architecture, enterprise and consumer. There are two clients, consumer client and enterprise client. There are two services in the cloud. Consumer service, nothing to do with our Skype for Business Online, previously known as Link Online as part of Office 365. It is a rebrand. We just released also May 1st Skype for Business Server 2015. There are 3 areas of announcement which have occurred since November all the way to Enterprise Connect and to Ignite here. Client-side announcements, client, Skype for Business client, server, and service. Those are the announcements. And whole part of our ecosystem, our partners have made announcement along with that. So I want to make sure that you understand this piece, that this is what it is. It's why rebrand? So, okay, Microsoft, these are the questions. Then why the rebrand? Answer is, people like, the familiar experience. Think in this term, the way I'm going to explain it to you. If I apply for a job with you today, you're not likely going to ask me, Mike is going to in Orange, if I apply for a job there, he's not going to ask me that, hey, Ahmed, do you know how to fire up a Word document or a PowerPoint or Outlook? Or do you know even how to log into the machine? If I don't know the answer to that, I will not even qualify to stand in the line to apply for the job. Although all my life I've been using phone systems, I would basically, when I get hired, he would explain it to me that this is how I use your phone system. These are the button, what it means. You dial 4 digits in this building or 5 digits, or this is how you check your voicemail. This is your audio conferencing. Somebody would have to explain it to me, that enterprise communication system, how it is used. Imagine the day that I do not qualify to apply and stand in a line to apply the job with Michael if I don't know their enterprise communication system, enterprise communication and collaboration system. That's what we're talking about. One experience, familiar experience, the experience that millions of users love around the world. Enterprise architecture, enterprise grade. Best of both worlds, bringing the enterprise house and the consumer house together and delivering that experience. We knew this when we delivered 2013. We knew this. And I know that a lot of people, you have noticed this because you have asked us this question, hey, what was Silk doing underneath on 2013 scale? We knew this. We just changed the priority because we were ready for Skype for Business. We knew that we were going to rebrand it, right? That sort of thing. So that's what it is. All those 264 investments, all those investments, if you look at, here is another point. I have a 12-year-old. She is since she has gone to 7th grade, I've noticed that she is a lot more on Skype, on video. So my wife said, hey, we need to, maybe help her understand that she needs to do her homework too. And I thought, okay, so every time I walk into her room and she's on the call with somebody and I'm like, somebody is another person on the side, so I can't even general her. So I'm like, okay. So one day I finally, said, okay, I'm going to talk to Jaz. So I said, Jaz, honey, I think, you can talk to your friends a little bit later. Let's finish up your homework first. With a very innocent face, she looked at me and said, Tad, that's exactly what I'm doing. See, make sense what I just said? Point is that I first, as a network manager, when I got promoted in 2000, in that mercantile exchange financial industry which I was working in, I was given an access to audio conferencing because I became a manager. My role required that. Now it came with a privilege. 7th grader doing her work, video collaboration, look where it is going. So that's what it is. That's what we are doing about it. Again, just to make the point, if it can move forward, could you best of the both world, enterprise-grade architecture, Skype-inspired design for the familiar user experience, making sure that people know that. That's what it is. Essentially, 2 different clients, 2 different services at the back end. Hope I made it abundantly clear. That's what it is. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to basically tell you next piece here that I was, anybody from New York here? Yeah? Were you about 6 months back, these Enterprise Connect people, No Jitter people went on a road show? Anybody attended that? In that audience, in the last 30 seconds, somebody asked a question. Hey, Microsoft, explain us, what do you mean by universal communication? Now, the moderator told me you have 30 seconds to answer this question. I had no idea how do I explain this in 30 seconds, so I thought it very quickly, and I said, hey, listen, all the enterprise-grade architecture, the scalability, the security, the operationability, all those, the interoperability, all those things at the back end in enterprise architecture you can imagine, they're there. Think of that. Now look at this. A 3rd grader can navigate the Skype interface as easily as a rocket scientist. Now that's universal communication. So what we mean by universal communication is not only the reachability of everybody in the world, but also universal in the sense the way people use it and experience. That sort of a thing. I'll make another point. And the point I want to make is that if I want to call somebody in Australia, Sydney, who is not working for my employer, I have a name, but I don't know how to contact. I don't have the contact information. I can actually do 2 ways. One is that I look up the phone book, try to find a number, and pick up and then make an intention to traverse a network, a public cloud, which is called PSTN, and reach that person. Another way would be that I put it in the Skype directory, in my link for Skype for Business, and search in Skype consumer directory and try to reach that person. And that's another way to. So the idea is that whatever network, whatever device, wherever you are, we should be able to reach you. And that's another way to look at this thing. With that, let's give it back to Tamur.
Thank you, Amir, for explaining to us a great story behind how we rebranded and why we rebranded. I'm going to talk a little bit about extensibility and sort of what that means. The questions that I keep getting from you guys is, around WebRTC, ORTC, what's, mobile clients, what do they look like, all of that sort of theme around mobile and web. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means to us, what the questions really are, where they sort of lead to, and what our strategy and vision is for that. So it's important because people refer to this as many different things. Some people come up to me straight with the term of WebRTC. Some people talk about client-less communications. It's a bunch of different things. So I wanted to make sure that we understand where this is. So ORTC or WebRTC or whatever you've heard from an industry term perspective usually talks a little bit about plug-in-less, seamless experience through the browser for real-time communication. So the RTC piece, right? So that's just sort of laying the foundation of what that is. What does that mean for us, right? So when we talk a little bit about, you've heard a lot of people from Microsoft talk about business-to-business collaboration and communication, business-to-consumer. So it's not really more in terms of the boundaries of your organization. It's sort of how you reach out to that from an external perspective. So we'll talk a little bit about what that means and what that strategy is from our side as well. So before we do that, I want to make sure we set the stage here, right? So WebRTC is an industry term. And it doesn't actually refer to a standard. It refers to something that we're trying to do in a way that makes sense, right? And it's been around for a while now, for a couple of years, even prior to that, in some shape or form or the other. And there's some companies that are adopting sort of how to do this and use this communications both in the web space and in the mobile space as well. And it's important for me to just say out loud, very, very, very important, that Microsoft is completely bought into this idea of what we're trying to do. The technology, let's just abstract that for a second, right? Whether it's WebRTC or what, I want to make sure that we understand we want to get to a future where this is actually a part of our strategy and part of our product solution set. So what we've been doing is we've been working on this is sort of tricky right now. We've been working on a panel, and we're working towards standards to be able to implement, right? So right now, there's a lot of disagreement on how we implement WebRTC and ORTC. So we're coming up with these specifications or these suggestions to be able to say, okay, this is what we need, both from a media perspective, a signaling perspective, a platform perspective, to be able to deliver this capability out to you guys, right, as part of our platform, as part of our solution. So we're actively engaged with some of the industry peers that we have to be able to figure out what that means and how we're going to do that, right? Now, the platform piece for Skype for Business is just one aspect of it, right? Because of the technology, how it's going to be delivered, it's going to have to be very, very much enabled in operating systems, as well as browsers, as well as any sort of medium that you're going to use to be able to leverage this technology, right? So it's not just a Skype for Business problem. It's actually a more broader ecosystem thing that we have to make sure that everybody comes, first of all, agrees upon what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and then implements that in their platforms and so on. You guys may have heard, I think we made the announcement sort of earlier in the year around what Internet Explorer's plans were to build the stack for this communication into IE. I think that's supposed to be later this year at some point. And we're also announced in Skype for Business that we're very much looking at putting this in our roadmap. So at some point in the Skype for Business platform, this is going to be available. We're just waiting for the industry to sort of come to terms with what we're going to do. So that's our strategy, but we're fully invested in that as well. The other thing I want to really touch base very quickly on is that a lot of people ask for the web stuff, which is where WebRTC and ORTC are really positioning themselves. But there's also a lot of conversations around mobile, right? A lot of people want to embed sort of communications into their mobile apps, native iOS apps, Android apps, Windows Phone apps. That's a really big ask as well. It's not just about whether we want to sort of branch out and use the Skype, which are excellent Skype clients and Skype for Business clients, but there's also sometimes a need to sort of abstract that client space when you're talking to the consumers. So the consumers could be using web. We've got an idea about how we're going to do that, and for mobile as well, and we've got an idea for that. So we're also very committed to providing this kind of seamless communication through the mobile, so you can talk through your mobile apps and leverage the platform for communications, which is Skype for Business. It is on our immediate roadmap, and we will be getting there soon. So no news yet on when and how and what, but I want you to know that it is definitely something that's on our mind. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Amir to talk about all important cloud offerings.
Here are the topics which we're going to cover on the cloud side. Basically, what we mean by the cloud voice, what we mean by how we're going to provide end-to-end call quality, how we were going to do that. What do we mean by broadcast meeting, which Gurdeep announced yesterday, and what other scenarios, flexible deployment scenarios are available there for you. But before I do that, let me ask you this question. How many of you have seen that vision video, actually, which was played in BJ and Ben's session, I think 2 days back? All right, most of you. Okay, so that's good. One thing, if you remember that video and you frame it, and now you look at what I earlier said about it, and the personal story I shared with you, one thing which is very, very important, which is the way in the hallways of Redmond we think about it, we want to get the technology out of the way. We want that human-to-human communication. We want to provide that. And that's what we started the journey with, even with LCS, with Office Communication Server as well, right? And that's what we are building upon. And the idea is at the next level, this whole paradigm shift, where remember we start with the CLI, then we went to GUI, and then we are now at no interface at all, means natural interface, NUI now. So that's what whole about is. Idea is, how do you do that then? How do you make sure that you bring that whole intelligence and everything together? First thing is to think, what is voice? If you are looking at, this was a struggle with me, because I had problem spelling Active Directory sort of a thing, because I came from a telecom side of the house, network side of the house, to, in my mind, I was talking about voice as an application. Apologies for a little bit more going in the technology in stack, as a layer 7 thing, and I was still stuck at layer 3. I was saying layer 7 stuff, but I was saying layer 3, so I made that linkages in my head the way that I realized that, oh, voice is an application, and under voice application, dial tone is one of the capability or feature of voice. So dial tone could be equal to those, bulky phone system or PBXs, but voice is not equal to PBX. That's the thing which I build. And when I was over the hot, and it was not easy, because for 20 odd years, that was what my mantra was, and then finally I was able to do that. Here, the reason I made that, preface is that because I want to make sure that you understand what I wrote here. When I say Microsoft already offers voice in the cloud, I want to make sure that I'm qualifying why I said that. Because I can reach out to somebody outside my organization or within my organization both ways without connecting to a public cloud called PSTN. I can. But if I want that dial tone, that classical dial tone, and I want to get to that somebody who's on dial tone only, then I need connected to that. And that's what was missing in Link Online. To Skype, with Skype for Business Online, that's the announcement. We, Microsoft, going to be providing PSTN connectivity, cloud PSTN connectivity. That's what's missing with our, think in this term. What is communication and collaboration? And then the next question is, why do you need it? There is two ways you can look at communication and collaboration at high level. Asynchronous communication and collaboration, and synchronous communication and collaboration. And why do you need it? As a person, as a human being, when I am talking to, let's say, Steve here, unless he's not sure that the other side of the line is this is amir.kaleem@microsoft.com, inherently we assume that our confidentiality, integrity, and privacy of the conversation. If he's not sure, then he's not sure that he's talking to me. That's why that identity, that person is important. So it's all about the user, the person. And when, as a human being, I either create content or I consume content. It's information, right? When I want to share that information or consume information, or I want to publish that information, I need that productivity tools. That's where asynchronous and synchronous communication and collaboration comes in, right? So asynchronous ways, one way is that I use email as an asynchronous communication tool, very effective. We all used to it. And now more and more synchronous way of doing those things. So that's the idea whole about this thing is. Idea is that let's break down that barriers, and this whole communication and collaboration should not happen on hundreds and millions of connections, but billions of shared experiences. That's what Gurdeep meant when he said that individual productivity is extremely super important, but team productivity is critical. That's what he meant by in his keynote. Now, next point I want to make is, when we're going to offer this cloud voice, the PSTN connectivity I was talking about, so PSTN connectivity leads into two basically offering in the underneath. One is essentially PSTN calling, The second is that you should be able to deliver PSTN dial-in numbers for your conferencing. Absolutely. I mean, when I was on the enterprise side, it would have been a dream come true that from a same portal, I could buy my productivity. Actually, let me back off. I could buy my identity. I could buy my productivity suite. I could buy my voice circuits for communication circuits, and I could buy my data circuits. It would have been a dream come true. That's where I hold my life as, and that's what we believe will be unique in this place. We'll be the one who will be offering that. When? Second half of this calendar year, 2015, we will start with US, very quickly follow the rest of the world, and we'll start from the known markets, That's where it is. How? you will be able to buy it from Office 365 portal, Microsoft. Or if for carrier contracts you have today, circuits coming, well, at one point with that PRI coming to your data centers, to your offices, most likely is backhauled on an MPLS network to begin with. But point I'm trying to say is that how you can buy it directly from us and have your circuits directly connected in our cloud. And if you happen to be in a situation where you were in, let's say, in the service contract and in the life cycle where you cannot break it, we'll give you ability that we can suck that up through the MPLS network, through the express route to our cloud. So call control remains in the cloud. And another question is that Microsoft will become a carrier. We would comply the telecom regulations of a given market where we are operating. We will comply with that. And this is what, very quickly, let me tell you, once you offer real-time media, voice and video, that means you can't have the weakest link, that the public data network, although our media stack, you know about it. That's the reason we are famous. That's the magic sauce. But at the same time, when you're talking about enterprise-grade architecture, we're going to give you an ability to buy premium services and have your data center connected to our data center through MPLS network. And all those capabilities which you know for, that you can buy the ports from the carrier and maintain that, prioritize the traffic for real-time voice and video, absolutely there. It would be an SLA backed. That's what it is, that express route. This express route thing is not only created for Office 365, it's already there in market for Azure. We're going to be adding Office 365. And you have seen those whole bunch of tier 1 carriers who have signed up with their partners in the, globally to offer this. Microsoft Azure data centers, there are a whole bunch of multiple data centers around the world, and those data centers are connected themselves. Microsoft connectivity between the data centers is owned by Microsoft from layer 1 to layer 7, end-to-end call quality. And we will give you access to that backbone, our own investments. We have laid our own fiber under the ocean. We'll give you that access through this local connectivity through express route.
Thank you, Amir, for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about broadcast meetings. Actually, Ignite is a very interesting event for us because this is the first event that we've actually announced this feature and revealed it to the general public. So this is pretty exciting. So there's no announcements to make here. Obviously, it was announced earlier in the keynote. There's been a couple of sessions on this as well. This is just a recap. If you need to know more details on how this is going to work and all that kind of stuff, I would suggest to look at that session on broadcast meetings that was done yesterday. But I will do a quick recap. So for those of you who haven't heard the news yet, we are allowing the capability to have broadcast meetings in Skype for Business. It's a cloud-delivered offering. It'll scale up to 10,000 participants. It is supposed to be an event, sort of town hall experience. It's not supposed to be a fully collaborative experience, but we will be providing collaboration experience through Yammer where it makes sense. So when you think about a meeting that's that size, right? Not everybody needs to be on video. Not everybody needs to be chiming in over audio, but there is some modalities that you might need to be able to be collaborative, like questions and answers and so on. And we'll be providing that as well. We've announced a technical preview in summer, and with the feature being available later this year for both on-prem and online customers. So that's that. And really the big draw here is that somebody who's presenting in a broadcast meeting. So if you're somebody who wants to talk to 10,000 people, perhaps it's a CEO or CXO level person, they'll still be using the familiar Skype client experience to be able to do that, right? So they'll still be using the Skype for Business client to be able to create this meeting or be participant in this meeting. But then people who will be joining from various different places around the world, within your company, outside of your company, anyone basically with a web link can join that broadcast meeting. So very powerful experience. Stay tuned for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about some deployment options. So one of the things that when the Skype for Business team was starting to architect the server piece, one of the biggest things that they were thinking about was we have to be thinking about how we can integrate with the cloud offerings a lot more seamlessly. So I think Skype for Business server on-premise has a lot of capability, right? One of the things that's kind of interesting and unique, which I'm pretty excited about, is the on-premise PSTN connectivity. And what this really means is that your users or your population that you have in your organization can be hosted online. So Office 365 can be where those users live for all of their workloads, for all of their modalities. They can be managed out of the Office 365 portal, and they can stay there. So the majority of your infrastructure and bulk of your processing is done there as the service. But then let's say that you have some need to connect to a PSTN carrier that we don't offer, right? So we're going to have cloud voice, as Amir mentioned, but perhaps you have a need to work with a carrier that you have a long-term contract with, or you have some sort of interop scenario with a PBX or some sort of call control platform that you need to still be able to do that. So we're going to offer this functionality where you'll have some infrastructure on-premise, users are still online, some infrastructure on-premise to be able to connect to those PSTN trunks, that voice piece as well. So that's a really, really key piece, and I'm particularly very excited about the on-premise PSTN connectivity piece, right? We've already offered splitting users between online and on-prem before as well. So you can have some users online, some users on-prem, same domain infrastructure, and we can do that. And there might be reasons why you wanted to have users online, but that's also a key scenario that we'll continue to support and do really well with, right? One of the other reasons why you'd need to have a hybrid environment or a hybrid infrastructure to be able to support things like applications. So if you have a contact center, or if you have some sort of UCMA application or a API-based application, MSPL script running on your infrastructure, you could still support that with a hybrid deployment, but your users can still be online and managed through the service. So that's kind of exciting to be able to do all of these scenarios, even with users that are online. Video interop's a big one as well. So for those of you who don't know, we've also, with Skype for Business, we're introducing something we're calling the video interop server, which allows us to be able to interop with even more video endpoints, particularly Cisco endpoints. And so we're going to be able to do that as well. So if you have your users online again, and you have some hybrid infrastructure on-premise to be able to do the video interop, that's going to be possible as well. So you have video endpoints from multiple different vendors that's going to come together very nicely in this hybrid scenario as well. So a lot of different flexible deployment options for you to be able to figure out whether you're going to be in the cloud or on-prem, or what workloads you want to have where. So it's very exciting stuff. Over to you, Amir.
So we're going to talk about a little bit about these voice application and adjuncts. I think we want to shift a little bit from Skype for Business and a little bit go deeper on the voice as well. We're going to cover that as well. But before I do that, I want to make one more point, which I was talking earlier, that my identity with who's on the side of the line. It's extremely important because that Amir.Kaleem at Microsoft.com is an identity provided by Data Cloud to me. I have another identity, 630-725-4202. Nobody in the world has it.
That's his real number, by the way, so I hope you wrote it down.
Right. What I'm trying to tell you is, it's your choice. Which network, which cloud you want to traverse, because based on that selection you made, the richness of experience of the interaction will depend upon that. So I'll leave it up to you from that standpoint. On the contact center, our contact center strategy, and this question was actually asked during a closed door session as well yesterday, and some of my friends are here. It's a partner-led strategy. Although built into Link, there is an ACD, but that's not a contact center replacement. If you were looking, we basically go from, you want that contact center, where it is independent of underlying call control. It's not under, or you are looking for a smaller contact center. We actually, if you look at from where we come from, we created a new paradigm. You could have a federated contact center. You could have your agents. First of all, that whole nirvana of remote agents and remote supervisors. That's what Skype for Business allows you to do that, number one, based on our media stack and based on our architecture. Second thing is that it also gives you the ability that you could be an agent and federated with that company, so you're drawing identity from yourself, from your own directory services, and then you can be federated agent, that sort of thing. So if you're looking for that high end, where you in a single queue, you have your agent concurrencies of thousands of users, thousands of agents, you knock it off. You have Genesis, you saw the Genesis announcement day one here, and aspects of the world. And if you want to go lower level, then we interactive intelligence, and those are our players. And if you want to go further down, Clarity Connect, there's a whole bunch of it. There are about 20 plus, actually probably 20. What we do is that we work with our partners and we qualify them. And we then publish them on our interoperability webpage. So that's basically the list from there. Second piece is automatically, if you are anywhere in the enterprise world, you know that you have compliance requirements, you have compliance recording requirement, HR, trading systems, depending upon, even in healthcare industry, right? So you have those requirements. As a call control vendor, if you look at the commonly call control vendors, they do not offer usually their own call recording equipment. They work with the ones which are known in the marketplace, and we exactly have the same idea here. We're going to continuously update our architecture and APIs to build more and more capability, but keep in one thing in mind, that traditional call recording was designed for the traditional call control systems. That you, as people who provide the services now, the enterprise communication services, you have to have more challenges. Two people who are working from home, they're sitting behind their own NAT and not trying to talk, and that conversation may have to be recorded. You have to reconstruct the conversation, whether it was started in instant message, email, or on actual voice or video call. That's what probably the regulations are today, and that's what we're delivering. So all the edge scenarios, the remote scenarios, we're working with partners like Verba here, audio codes, and those are the scenarios we're catering the need for. It's an enterprise-grade architecture. Love to get double-click to it. If you have any question, catch me after this. Very passionate about this thing. Second piece, this is very near and dear to my heart. Because point is, this usually people put off for day 3 or day 4 sort of a thing. I used to do that when I was in enterprise world. But you need eyes and ears on day 1. Actually, I would say day 0. It is, and then the issue was that when I was evaluating, those call control systems or phone systems or PBXs, this thing was a separate thing. We had to have a dedicated team and specialists and put on an infrastructure and buy it and train it. It was itself an elaborate system, the monitoring piece of it. No, sir, not for Skype for Business. If you're familiar with our Link monitoring server, same thing. We are further adding capabilities and providing new dashboards, but we have also opened it up from our ecosystem. People have very rich capabilities, especially around that Link SDN API, software-defined API. It takes you to another level. Really cool stuff. So software-based, without need of probes, you can pinpoint which intermediate system, whether router, switch, a firewall, you can identify that is causing the problem on the call quality. So really, really cool stuff there as well. With that, I will hand it back to Timur.
Yeah, so thanks, Amir. I mean, one of the questions I keep getting asked with people, and I've been at the booth quite a bit as well, a lot of people come in and ask me, like, can I really do all of the voice stuff that my current call control platform does? And I don't think we talk enough about this, right? But there's a bunch of different things that go around with call control, right? You've got your traditional ACD, IVR stuff. You've got features like call park and malicious call trace. You've got the CDR billing aspect of it. You've got voicemail, announcement services, location-based routing, some more advanced capability. So, all of those things, and there's plenty more. But all of those things are certainly available and being enhanced all the time in, starting with Link and now with Skype for Business. So it's been a really great journey to be able to think about how our customers, and a lot of these things have been built by feedback, right? Have been built by, okay, these are things that are important to my organization from a voice perspective. And so I want to make sure that we all understand that all of that functionality is built in one way or the other into the platform, right? We couldn't be a credible voice provider without this, right? And it's in the server product, and we are going to look to figure out what needs to be in the cloud product, and we're going to put that in the cloud product as well. So keep that in mind as well in terms of when you're thinking about how do I do voice with Skype for Business and what does it mean for my organization. I'm going to talk a little bit about devices because I think this is, again, an issue very near and dear to my heart. We hear it all the time as well from our customers. But what about devices? What can I use around this? And I think that there's a conversation that stops somewhere, right? We think about devices as phones and audio equipment, right? We think about headsets, we think about conference room phones, and we think about all these things. But it's really a lot more than that, right? For us, one of the things that we're very proud of, the ecosystem that we've built around our hardware partners, right? At the moment, for example, we have 158 different qualified devices for audio, right? That's a ton of devices, every form factor, every price point that you can think of, every function. So that's actually a very, very interesting thing that provides a lot of choice to be able to figure out how do you classify your users and your sites and spaces and what kind of devices you use over there. From a video perspective as well, our ecosystem is growing. I mean, I'm sure if you've been to the booth, you've seen sort of our Surface Hub offering, you've seen the Roundtable 100, you've seen the Skype room system, and many, many more things around some of the vendors that we work with, like Polycom and Lifesize and so on. So they've got a bunch of different video devices that come together to bring that ecosystem to provide that choice for you in terms of what you're looking for from a price and form factor. So that's really important. So part of our interop program that we've got, and we're very proud of this interop program, is we also qualify gateways and things like session border controllers and so on to complete that voice story, right? So we've qualified a gateway from a bunch of different vendors. I don't even remember, Amir, if you know how many vendors we've got qualified from a gateway perspective, from a session border controller perspective. So that's a really key part of that, right? Because how are you going to do that PSTN interop that Amir was talking about earlier, or interop with your PBXs? That's how you're going to get there. And that's certainly part of our program. The other thing that actually is relatively new, but still very, very exciting, is we're also doing a bunch of infrastructure work, right? So we're qualifying partners, everything from wireless down to load balancers. We're qualifying networking partners like HP. We're qualifying people who are using our SDN API, which is a fantastic way to deliver capability and take intelligence from the network and deliver that to the application and vice versa, to be able to do some amazing things. I mean, I would really encourage you to take a look at what our vendors are doing around our SDN APIs and how they're leveraging that. We talked a little bit about the client side and the server side APIs, but there's also a networking API that we've built into the platform that is being leveraged to do some really cool things, not just analytic and diagnostic stuff, but some really enhanced capabilities as well. So very exciting things there from an ecosystem perspective. So I wanted to sort of bring that together to close the loop on sort of this voice piece that we talk about, because this is very, very close to networking and voice, and I wanted to make sure that we covered that. So now here's the risky part of our presentation, right? I don't have a backup plan. We don't have a backup plan. And Amir and I were discussing this, and we were arguing about how much time do we leave in your capable hands on questions that you have. So if you have no questions, then there's going to be an awkward 30 minutes left. But if you have some questions, we want to address those. We want to talk about what's on top of your mind. I mean, I'm sure you're hearing a lot of stuff from other people in the Skype for Business organization and team, but this is your chance to sort of come back with us. We may not be able to answer everything. We'll try our best, absolutely, but there's some stuff we'll take back for feedback. So please step up to the mics and let us know what's on top of your mind. What are you thinking about, and how we can help. So thank you for already coming up. I'm going to take that gentleman first. Oh, I know you. Hi.
Hello. So when are the SBCs going to be supporting Server 2012 R2 versus right now? They said Microsoft is only pushing 2008 R2 on the SBCs at this point.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that question, but I will get back. I'm going to take a note and I'm going to follow back with that. Okay. Let's go there.
We use remote call control quite heavily in our organization, and I bet there are a lot of other organizations out there that do the same. There was an announcement that RCC would be no more in Skype for Business. Can you confirm or explain a bit why?
Thank you for the question. I want to bet. I was betting a couple of colleagues that the RCC question wouldn't be the first few questions, but it is. So thank you so much for letting me win the $5 or so. So there was a session, dedicated to RCC and what we're now calling Call via Work. So I would certainly recommend you watching that session and come to me offline. I'll tell you exactly what the breakout is. I don't have the book with me. And the idea here is that RCC has been an interesting conversation for us, right? It's great in some scenarios, but it's not so great in a lot of other scenarios. So we want to we wanted to sort of come up with something that allows people to leverage the investment that they've made in the desk phones and in the sort of call control infrastructure that they've got, but we also wanted to give them an experience that we strive for, right? So the Skype for Business experience, the rich presence, the visual stuff, the click-to-call and all that kind of stuff, without cannibalizing some of the workloads that RCC does. So we came up with sort of a trade-off, right? So there's no really direct replacement for RCC, but what we've done is we've introduced this new feature in Skype for Business called Call Via Work, which allows us to be able to do just that, right? So it allows us to be able to leverage the sort of desk phone capability, but also get the rich experience from Skype for Business from a client perspective. So if you haven't been to that session, I strongly encourage you to do that. I'll be in the booth till about 6 p.m. today. If you want to come over and talk a little bit more in detail about that, please let's do that. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
So one of the things that our beta users keep asking us for is, when is there going to be a Mac client?
Great question.
So I'll take that question. So first of all, thank you so much again. And this was actually my $5 bet on the Mac client. If you could see the tire mark on my face. But Anna, jokes apart. First of all, let me assure you, totally committed to it. Right? Second thing is, this is one thing which we probably have done a poor job of communicating. I've been with a lot of CTOs around the world and on this particular topic. If you look at the existing client which is out there, which is called Link Mac Client 2011, right? We are not doing justice to ourselves. It's not 2011 client anymore. If you look at the original 2011 client and look at the client today, right, you will understand how many capabilities we have added, including like E911 support sort of thing. So to give you a little bit history and then directly answer your question, you should expect, let me answer the question first. You should expect a client from us, which will be brand new client for Skype for Business, in somewhere in the first quarter of calendar year 2016, right? But here is this thing. We have not that, okay, we're going to build that client. We basically, when back in October 2012, I remember this conversation, we started together and we said, what we need to do? This client is flaky, USB devices cannot be connected, logins sometimes are failing, it drops desktop sharing session, these are the things. We said, do we need to drop this and go and work for a new client for that 2013 experience? And we figured out that the answer is we have to do both. And if you look at so much investment all the way up till probably, I think, a month back, we've been releasing stuff. We have added capability back and forth on it. I have a document. If you meet me in the booth, I'll give you the document of this investment. So if you're on the latest Mac OS and the latest the update which we have provided, you'll be happy with that.
Yeah, and just to sort of add to what Amr said, so BJ did announce earlier in the session end of this calendar year. So if there's anybody who's going to get in trouble for that, it's him. So we're officially end of calendar year 2015 is when you should see Mac client drop.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Okay, when will you support call admission control in Office 365 dedicated?
I'll take that.
Yes, you better. By the way, sorry, but before you answer the question, I had shirts to give away. So if anybody wants a shirt who's asked a question already, this is my favorite part. I get to throw T-shirts at you. So, you want one?
So the question is, let me repeat it for the audience so that everybody understands the question of the gentleman out there. The question is, when you going to offer call admission control in Office 365 dedicated environment? So let me back up and let's make sure everybody understands. Office 365, as of today, is offered in two flavors. One is the multi-tenant and another is the dedicated. The dedicated is for large enterprises, minimum 30 to 40,000 people sort of environment, and they're sort of a dedicated infrastructure for them. And then then there's a multi-tenant, which is shared environment, basically, sort of a thing. So first question is that we are you a dedicated customer today, sir?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So I'm assuming that you are heading for a cab very soon?
Heading for what?
The customer advisory board.
Oh, yeah, we will have people out there. I probably will.
All right, cool. We're going to share our roadmap over there. So in this, I think I'll leave it there, and we'll go over those details that how the dedicated environment is going to evolve and all those capabilities along with that. In 2 weeks from now, I believe, we have a CAB, a customer advisory board for dedicated customers. That's where we're going to share our roadmap for Skype for Business there.
Is it in the multi-tenant environment with this release?
No.
CAC isn't there either?
No.
Okay. I was given a wrong answer yesterday then. Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
We're kind of late adopters of Link, and what was keeping us from it was it didn't have a persistent chat group, and then we lately discovered that we couldn't get more than 100 users in one group. Is that something that'll be addressed in the upcoming release for 2016?
Cool. So better late than never. So we're not making any changes to persistent chat at the moment. It is going to continue to exist as it is, but we haven't announced or made any changes so far. Certainly not saying that could change or not. So come meet us offline and we'll figure out what the roadmap looks like.
Okay.
Thanks for the question.
And then also the groups of 100 people or more, is that a limit that will be raised, or is that going to stay where it is?
At the moment, it's going to stay. Okay. So there's no changes whatsoever to that. But certainly there could be a roadmap that I could share with you. Cool. Thank you. I think you were first and then you were next. Go for it. Yeah.
Great roadmap, obviously, for Skype for Business moving forward. But as you think about today and an organization making decisions today, and let's take international as an example, what would you say is sort of the threshold for a decision on going on-prem for voice and video? PSTN, we're not talking about that, so no, don't worry about the voice bits, but really just video conferencing, sort of the first two workloads or first two phases in the deployment of Skype for Business. What today, or what kind of guidance would you give today in terms of number of seats, and think international as well? Because we want a good experience for our users. We know we can control some certain things internally, but just a little highlight on that, please.
Sure. It's a great question, and as part of our some public documentation, we have provided some guidance. But I'll answer your question in this way. It depends upon, that what environment you are. You're in 2010 environment, you are 2013 environment. Then the second question would be that which markets in the world, like you said, think global, right? Which markets you are in. And there would be markets where telecom regulations are not favorable enough for us to be there in the day one sort of thing or day two sort of a thing. And then I agree that if you're not worried, don't worry about the PSTN connectivity, just talk to me about, it's more of a collaboration space you're talking about this thing. The way I would think, if I was in your place, the way I would think is that I would identify the low-hanging fruit. And I will tie it up my investment along with the Microsoft roadmap and build my internal service roadmap based on low-hanging fruit. The investment I'm going to make on-premise, although you don't need to make that on-premise. If you do not have a requirement to connect with the PSTN today, your all collaboration and communication need can be serviced by Link Online, right? The question becomes there is for globals, the other countries where, like India, China maybe, or places like there or somewhere. That's where you can think about your user population and you can feel that, you can assess that whether a local infrastructure based on local conferencing or communication and collaboration profile justifies that, or hosted where it is hosted out of United States justifies that. Make sense?
Yeah, and one of the things I was talking about earlier, just to add to what Amir said, the flexibility is there, right? So if you wanted to have some people online and some people on-prem, or you wanted to have all the people online but do some workloads on-prem, I mean, it's all coming together from that perspective, right? So you don't have to have this all-encompassing decision. If today you wanted to go on-prem, but 6 months later you decide you want to go online, that migration process is pretty simple too, right? Yeah, so it's all flexible from that perspective.
And that's been our instinct. And again, we're just trying to avoid
absolutely
a user revolt on the first step. We want to make sure, because we're doing it in phases, and we want to make sure that we don't miss that. Because we know the roadmap's solid, but we want to make sure that first step's
I'll give you, so you're thinking right, and I'll give you one more data point on that. IT leaders around the world have actually started to begin thinking in these terms of not where the service is being drawn from, although everybody's looking for the cloud. But they, from a user's perspective, they're defining and they are locking down the user experience. At the back end, the pipe comes from their own data center, somebody else's data centers, or Microsoft data centers. Users don't need to know that. So you're defining the user experience. Make sense?
By the way, I promise I'd do this. I want to make a shout out. I have two groupies, by the way, in the front row, Jeremy and Darren from Cisco. Say hi, everybody. Thank you.
Questions surrounding end user experience. So I'm on the admin side and on the end user. 2010 was a separate client. 2013 is now part of the Office suite. Just want to get a context beside Skype for Business. What was the decisioning behind the push versus the pull, and the communication strategy? We communicated across our enterprise, but maybe some M&As that aren't corporate. We're surprised with that, and we have a change of management policy behind that. We want them not to be surprised. We want them to be welcomed. So what was the decision behind that, and did they realize that we can control the UI, but you cannot control the hooks, the add-ins, all of those hooks in there? And what is your vision going 2016? I see kind of the hybrid preview.
You know, it's been a really, really over-discussed topic within us, the internal organization, around this UI thing, right? You know, I'd love to stand here and be able to tell you that we did so many different things from a communications perspective, which we did, right? We started communicating in November, and we started, you know, it was really, and you know, all the way up to 2 weeks before, we were really like doing all of our channels, right? Both in the online and as well as server, from an email perspective. However you as an admin wanted to have that communication. So could we have done stuff better or thought about it? Probably, right? But I think we really try to cover all of our bases, and we're sorry we didn't get to you if we didn't, right? Now, I don't know, if you have any feedback on that process, let us know, because we're trying to learn from this, right? We're trying to learn to figure this out. Now, this is obviously a dramatic sort of thing that we did, but I think it's very important, and one of the things that we realized was the Skype UI provides this really familiar experience. So we always thought that, you know, all of their users will be able to automatically attach to that, because they're using Skype in their personal lives, they would come to work and they would use Skype there as well. So that was one of the thought process behind what we're trying to do. We want to give them a familiar experience so they don't have to worry about training and adoption and all that kind of stuff. You know, obviously there's still some stuff to be thought about there, but certainly give you a leg up to be able to do that. For the hybrid stuff, you know, let me take that one offline. Is that okay?
Yeah, but I think fair point. We could have done a much better job on communication. I appreciate that, your feedback.
Thank you. Back there, yeah.
So we talk about user experience, and if a user doesn't have a good experience, the adoption drops, right? So nobody wants to use it. So if everybody is in the cloud, let's say we have a hybrid today, and we push everybody, you supporting PSTN, are you going to support QoS?
So the question is, if I understood it, and I'm going to repeat it, let's make sure. The question is that, okay, fine, that you were going to put everybody in the cloud, user home in the cloud. What about the QoS?
Correct.
That's the question. Mm-hmm. Essentially, you're talking about user that hopefully going to the cloud, especially for voice, will not end up in a poor user experience situation, right?
Yep.
So a couple of things. First of all, yes, the QoS, you know, the diffs of support is still there. So that's, and how do you now make sure that from Office 365 data center all the way to where your user population is, that end-to-end QoS is there? That's where the express route comes up. That's what we talk about, number one. Second thing, that the QoS support, because the client, most media for which will be peer-to-peer communication and collaboration, most media would remain within your premises, right? The media which traverse to the Microsoft data center where it is conferencing, that MPLS network, the premium service, that's what we're going to offer.
So I have one more. So I have lots of remote offices, and if I give them the number, now that becomes their primary PSTN or their phone, right? So how are we going to handle SRST scenario?
Sorry, say one more time.
Like SRST, survivability?
Survivability. So absolutely valid question. The way I would say is that inherently in a cloud offering, you want the more and more the leadership and IT side have, the feedback is given is that they want no local loop coming, number one, PSTN not no local loop, and no, you can say equipment-less offices or branches, sort of thing. So we would suggest that you design, the fundamentals of the architecture is you design around single point of failure, right? That's the concern. That so essentially when you remove those investments, some of the savings from that investments can go into building the redundancy network connectivity to provide you that. But we can go offline based on very specific situation of you and understand that, you know, what options are other than available. Because like Tamur said, if there are certain critical branch offices that have to have that local complete, you have to be, then we have all those flexible deployment options which we can.
Let's come up to the booth and we'll talk a little bit about what your specific scenario
So in the future is going to be supported? Is that in the roadmap or not yet?
It's there today, so we do some hybrid deployment stuff that we can address.
So we have
that.
okay. We need a hybrid.
Yeah.
And just one more.
Sure.
911 supported or now?
Sorry?
911.
So 911 on the server, both dynamic 911 and the basic 911 is been supported since Link 2010. That support is there. On the service side, on the cloud side, we will support 911. The dynamic 911 is on the roadmap.
It's in the roadmap. Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is regarding the voicemail. Is there any roadmap regarding integrating voicemail with Cisco or Nortel? Because I'm running into an issue is that if I make a Cisco dial plan as a default one, like the Cisco gateways are in the first dial plan, that I'm able to get the MWI, the lamp working, but the Link server doesn't recognize that it has a mailbox. So I'm able to only deliver the voicemail box to only one endpoint, which is a Cisco phone, but not the Link client. So is there any roadmap to fix that issue? Or is there any workaround?
You'll have to excuse us. We actually forgot Cisco had a voicemail product. Right. So is there any? I'm allowed one of these. The question is, are we going to integrate, or is there any plans to integrate with third-party voicemail? Let's not take a break. So any plans to integrate with third-party voicemail?
No, Exchange voicemail.
Sorry?
Exchange voicemail, delivering Exchange voicemail on a Cisco phone
right.
and the Link client at the same time.
So that is supported today. Correct. And what your problem is with MWI, let's talk offline. We'll figure out what your problem is.
Okay,
yeah, so it's supported, and MWI should work for both as well. We'll have to take it offline. It does work.
Otherwise, we have experts right here.
We do actually have experts right here.
Okay, where can I come?
Just come to the booth afterwards. After the session.
Which booth?
Skype for Business booth.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, today you have, with the Skype for Business, you have introduced the Silk or Skype codec to a lot more cases, ensuring a lot more situations where you retain HD voice. At the same time, carriers globally are doing on the mobile network also retaining HD voice in a pure cellular call. But if you call between those two, from a mobile phone to Skype, we go through a 100-year-old codec, which is a bit sad. Are there any plans, together with the carriers, to implement the codecs that the carriers are using in the mobile phones, so you can retain HD quality between the Skype user and a normal cell phone?
We'll love to do that. Let's talk offline which carriers you're working on and how you can help them to come and talk to us.
Yeah, just holistically though, I totally get your point. It's a fantastic point. We do need to shore up. We're obviously always adding to our media stack. If you look at what Link 2010's media stack was to what we are now, we've sort of really shored it up in terms of what we do for audio, even for video, right? So we've really come to that. I don't think there's a great answer for you today, but we want to share with you what are some of the things that we're thinking about. Obviously, we can't do that right now, but certainly, it is something that we want to do. We want to get to that place where we do HD voice between mobile carriers, cell phone calls versus, absolutely.
Was it a T-shirt quality question?
Absolutely was. You have to ask did you ask a question? You did. Here you go. Last T-shirt. Sorry. Yes, sir.
I just had a question regarding Link on-prem, Skype for Business on-premise, and our SIP addresses. We're in an organization where we can't have our SIP addresses match our SMTP aliases. And we run into issues all over the place. Is there any thought to putting it on the roadmap, something with like a SIP aliases?
Yeah.
Or letting us cheat the way that Link Online and Skype for Business Online does, where you're able to use an alias and still point it to Link Online and have it fully function.
Yeah.
We can't do that today on-prem.
Yeah, so we've thought about it. There's some challenges on doing that, and they're all sort of technical challenges, as well as some of the things that we want to do around identity, some of the things that sort of inherently rely upon this mechanism that we've got, that SMTP address and SIP addresses and how they. So I don't have a great answer for whether we have this on our roadmap yet or not. The alias thing is interesting, and our product teams have thought about that stuff. but there's always been some reason or not why not to do that and why it's not there yet. If you come to the Skype for Business booth, I'm going to introduce you to someone. I'll be there from after the session onwards. I'll introduce you to someone who will give you a more detailed answer on why and things you could do to help. Is that okay?
Yep,
Thanks for the question. Sorry you don't have any shirts. Amr, can you take your shirt off?
I just want to make a suggestion. As part of the April, Office 365 release, we got the Skype for Business upgrade. Because we're still using remote call control, we really wanted the opportunity to test it beforehand.
Yeah.
But we were told, because we weren't some part of some secret, squirrel group, that we couldn't see the build before it released. And unfortunately, I'm glad I'm here in Chicago, because right now my name would be mud back at my company, because that April release caused a crash with the UC DLL. So we no longer have conferencing working with our RCC. So I'd really like to avoid things like that in the future, because it gives your product a black eye.
This is no, absolutely. I liken this to something similar happened. It's completely irrelevant. I don't know why I'm saying this, but U2 put their album on iPhones. Did you hear about this? Right. So they forced the album on iPhones, and nobody liked this. So I guess we try to do things in a different way. I guess the story is that we've covered this before. Yes, we could have done it better. We could have communicated with you better. We probably should have thought about that scenario as well. I think we did a lot. If you talk to our marketing guys, if you talk to our engineering guys, we did a lot to sort of preempt some of this. And yeah, some of it did fall through. So we apologize for that. But we now need to know how to fix that. So please let us know how we can make it better, both for now, the situation you're in, and as well as for the future for communications.
I have a ticket in on it, and it's been sitting for a week with no response.
Oh, that's not.
I've given my log, so responding to my ticket would be a good first step.
That's not. I don't think you want me responding to the ticket. I have no idea what's going on under there. But certainly we'll, Again, come find me, and I'll, all of us, the reason I'm saying this, all of our engineering teams, all of our marketing teams, all of our support guys are in the booths today, so, come and find us, and we'll sort of try and help you out. Okay, well, we'll try and do better. Thank you.
I'll try and give you a softball question.
Softball question.
Any plans for centralized music on hold in the future?
Sorry, centralized?
Centralized music on hold.
Oh, boy. Centralized music on hold. Does anybody really need music? Anyway. Centralized music on hold is an interesting one. No plans at the moment from a roadmap perspective that I can share with you. We obviously have music on hold, but the centralized streaming, multicasting, all that kind of stuff is something that we haven't really paid a lot of attention to at the moment. Sorry. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
If you happen to be there, I would like to talk more about your scenario, exactly what are sub-scenarios to understand more.
Yeah. We may have
very interesting to me on this. I've worked a lot on music.
Yeah, there may be some third-party products that could help as well.
So we have a lot of, we're a heavy group chat user, persistent chat user.
Are you FSI?
No.
Okay.
And we've had a lot of pressure to make that mobile, and since we have not, they've adopted tools like Slack and others that provide that.
Slack.
And so it seems to me like a relatively simple sort of problem to solve on your side, it seems like. That's my perception. Okay. Is there, I can go buy a third-party product and have been able to since 2010, but that always feels a little...
Or you can just use WhatsApp and not pay for anything. I'm allowed one of these.
This is your second.
we do have a mobile client for persistent chat. Come talk to me afterwards, and we can talk to you about it and show it to you.
Third party or?
No, first party.
Okay.
Awesome. Fantastic answer, right? Wasn't
yes.
that the best answer in the world?
That's the best
like,
answer
were you ever expecting somebody to say that? All right, great. Solve your problem. So it looks like we have no more people at the mic, and we have like 4 of you left in the room. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sticking around for this Q&A. If you have more questions, by the way, feel free to come to the mic. We have 3.5 minutes left. So if you have any more questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for, oh, there's a question coming up. Oh, look at that. Before you applause.
We have a large investment in Cisco phones. Is there any plans to enable them to connect to Skype for Business?
So Darren's got a checkbook. He's going to buy everything back from you right now because there's a big market, apparently, for Cisco phones. It's great that you have this investment in Cisco phones. fantastic because we were selling them back then. Call via Work, the feature that I talked about, allows you to leverage that Cisco handset investment to do all of your voice workload, because that's what it does really well, is the voice workload, right? So we don't want you to think about, it's a more holistic strategy from a UC perspective, right? There's remote users, there's people who are traveling. You're not going to put your desk phone into your bag and take it with you, right? So the holistic strategy looks like this, right? And if you want to leverage your desk phone for that scenario where you're at your desk and you want to have this familiar audio experience, please continue to do that with things like Call via Work and our interop story, which is absolutely fantastic. And Cisco, by the way, certified, qualified interop partner. We love them. It's a great call control platform. Is that good? Good answer? Cool. This is going well. Oh, one more.
Question regarding response groups. Will they be supported on mobile clients?
Oh, nice question. Good question. Yeah, so certainly great feedback. It is something that we've got somewhere on our roadmap. Not at the moment, you're right. So it is a gap. Great question, great feedback. Can't share more dates and details with you yet, but certainly thinking about it.
Thank you.
Yep. Cool.
I've got the receipt book for people buying more stuff, not the checkbook.
Oh, that's the invoice. Oh, it must be a small invoice. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate you coming and spending time with us. Enjoy the rest of Ignite. Make sure you go out to Chicago. It's 80 degrees outside.